What's up, everyone? It's Patrick from Purple Park Studios. Today we're going to be making this city in the sky using geometry nodes. It's really not that complicated, so let's jump right in. Alright, so before we do this city, it's worth mentioning, you don't really necessarily need to do this to follow along with the tutorial, but to make it easier, I've put the Blender project file in a link in the description. You can get that for free. I've also included with the in the link in the description, there is the ship that I use in the animation, as well as the city that I modeled, which we're going to use to instance for this tutorial. But if you don't want to download it, don't worry, you can still follow along, and you can use something else like a cube, so it's not really going to matter too much. But if you do happen to download the FBX here, tap into edit mode and hit 3 to go into face select mode, and hit one of these faces here. Just hit L and then X and delete the faces. And that's because I don't know if it will import the materials in the session for you, so we can just go ahead and get rid of those. But yeah, this will just make things easier for us to see. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to, first I'm going to hide this collection here for now, and then I'm going to hit Shift A and I'm going to add in a cube, and we can open up the geometry nodes, a new geometry nodes tab here, and just click new. And the first thing we're going to do is hit Shift A, and we're going to get an object info node here, and just move that down here, and we're going to grab open up here, and we're just going to choose dome. And then what we're going to do next is hit Shift A, and we're going to get an instance on points node here, and just drop that right in there, and you're going to see that the cube disappears. And that's because, well, what are we doing here? Well, if we unhook this here, plug this straight into the geometry, so we have a cube, okay, and tap into edit mode, 1 for vertice mode. There's a bunch of points here, points all around the cube. You can see the vertices there. So what we're doing when we say we want to instance something else on these points. So I'll go out of edit mode there, back into object mode. So plug in the cube into the points, and then instance to geometry, which is, this is the output. So there's, right now Blender's not showing us anything because we're not instancing anything yet. So in order to instance something, we can go here, our object info, I selected the dome, and we're going to grab geometry, and we're going to plug it into instance. And now you can see that everywhere where there is a point on the cube, there is now our little mini city. So, I mean, that's cool and all, but like, you know, it's obviously nothing like what we saw in the animation. So in order to get it looking a lot better, we're going to need to change a couple things and add a couple more nodes. So the first thing we can do is we can hit Shift A, and we can add a set position node. And this isn't entirely necessary, but I like to add it in. It basically will allow me to control the position of the cube. You can see there's X, Y, and Z here. So it works the same way as if you were just to move a cube around in 3D space, like if you were modeling something in Blender. So the next thing we can do is we can add in a distribute points on faces. So I'll just move these out to give myself some more room, hit Shift A, and I'm going to grab a distribute points on faces node, and we'll just drop this right in here between the instance on points and the set position. And you can see that that just like adds a ton of stuff and it doesn't look right. So in order to fix this, there's a couple things we can do. So the first thing we can do is, if we look over here on this instance on points, there's rotation and there's scale, and there's rotation for XYZ and scale for XYZ. So we could just grab these here and start changing the scale. I mean, you could do that, but then everything's going to be the exact same scale, which we don't want. So we need to tell Blender, hey, I want to change the scale of all of these instances, but I want it to be, them to be like random sizes. So I'm going to hit Control Z to get back to the original, and then I'm going to hit Shift A, and there's a node for this. It's called random value node. So we're going to grab that, and we're going to plug the value into the scale. And now you can just mess with this minimum and maximum here. So we can turn this maximum down here, and you can also play with the minimum, but it's basically doing the same thing, just in opposite, so you really only need to play with one of them. So we'll go with something like that for now. It looks kind of cool. So looking at this right now, you can see it definitely still resembles a cube, and we want to kind of change this so it doesn't look so cubic. So on the distribute points to faces, there's an option here for density. If you turn it up, well, yeah, it adds more. If you turn it down, it adds less. So in our case, we could turn it down just a bit there, maybe like something like that. And now this doesn't quite look like a cube anymore. It looks like things are more spread out, which is cool. So yeah, that is really how easy it is to instance something and manipulate it. And there's a lot of different things you can do here. For example, say we go back into our layout, and say you're not using this. I mean, you could use any object in your scene. So we'll hit Shift A and we'll just add in a UV sphere and hit G and X, move that back, and then go back to our geometry nodes, select the city here. And I'll just change it, X out the dome there, and just change it to the sphere. And now you're instancing all this sphere. And if you want to shade it smooth and do it in geometry nodes, you can just hit Shift A, and there's a shade smooth, set shade smooth. Just drag and drop it right between here, between the instance on points and the group output, and that will shade everything smooth for you. You can always go ahead and hide that original sphere you added in. So it's really easy to change it like that. The other thing you can do too, you can also, we'll just unplug this, hit Shift A, and I can add in a sphere, because remember before we were instancing the points using a cube. So if I use a sphere, I'm going to get a lot more points right off the bat. So that's kind of a cool look as well, and we could always go back and change this from the sphere back to our dome, to our city, and maybe turn up the density. So you turn up the density, now you have a sphere. And this is stuff you can animate too. There's a lot of really cool things that people are doing with geometry nodes right now. So if you haven't checked them out and you're on the fence, like definitely check them out. I think I'm going to be doing a lot more tutorials with geometry nodes. I've been working on a bunch of different stuff and really trying to learn the geometry nodes, and I have some cool stuff that I want to share later down the road. So yeah, and I hope this tutorial was helpful, guys. Like I said, if you did download that project file that I have for free in the description, you get all the textures and stuff that I use in the animation, and just have some fun with it. And you know, it's already there, it's already built, the node setup's already there, the textures are there, so play around with stuff, see what you can come up with, and tag me in anything that you guys make. I'd love to see it. Alright, thanks for supporting the channel. See you guys in the next tutorial.